In the twilight of Judah's kingdom, as Jerusalem trembled under siege, a young man named Daniel found his world turned upside down. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, like a ravenous lion, had descended upon the holy city, carrying off not only its treasures, but also its most promising youth. Daniel, along with his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, were among these exiles, cream of the crop, handsome and intelligent, ripped from their homes to serve in the court of their conqueror. The Babylonian king had a vision to remold these young men in his image, to erase their heritage and replace it with Chaldean wisdom and culture. For 3 years, they were to be steeped in the language and literature of Babylon. Their very identities were under assault. New names were thrust upon them, erasing the echo of their God. Daniel became Belteshazzar, Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, and Azariah became Abednego. But Daniel, with quiet strength and unwavering faith, drew a line in the sand. The king's rich food and wine, likely sacrificed to idols, would not pass his lips. With diplomatic skill beyond his years, Daniel negotiated a test, 10 days of nothing but vegetables and water for him and his friends. The days ticked by, a silent battle of wills and faith. When the time came for their assessment, Daniel and his companions stood before the king, their faces glowing with health, their minds sharp as swords. They outshone all others in wisdom and understanding, leaving the king astonished. In that moment, as they stood tall in the opulent court of Babylon, these 4 young men proved that true strength comes not from conformity, but from staying true to one's convictions. Their God had honored their faithfulness, gifting them with knowledge and skill that surpassed even the wisdom of Babylon. And so Daniel began his journey in exile, not as a broken captive, but as a beacon of faith and wisdom in a foreign land. Little did the mighty Nebuchadnezzar know that in bringing Daniel to Babylon, he had invited a force that would shake the very foundations of his empire. Nebuchadnezzar tossed and turned in his golden bed. A dream, vivid and terrifying, had shaken him to his core. As dawn broke, he summoned his wise men, demanding they not only interpret the dream, but also tell him what he had dreamed. An impossible task, they protested. No one could know the contents of another's dream. Enraged, the king decreed a shocking edict. All the wise men of Babylon were to be executed. This included Daniel and his friends, though they hadn't been present for the initial summons. When the king's guard came for Daniel, he faced the crisis with remarkable composure. With diplomatic finesse, he bought time from the king, promising to unravel the mystery of the dream. Then gathering his friends, Daniel turned to the only source of true wisdom. They petitioned the God of heaven for mercy and insight. In the dark of night, the veil was lifted. God revealed to Daniel not only the king's dream, but its interpretation. Daniel's response was not pride, but profound gratitude and praise to the God who reveals deep and hidden things. Standing before Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel began to unravel the mystery. He described a colossal statue, head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet, a mixture of iron and clay. Then a stone, cut out by no human hand, struck the statue's feet, shattering the entire image. The stone grew into a great mountain, filling the whole earth. With breathtaking clarity, Daniel interpreted the dream as a panorama of future kingdoms. Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon was the golden head, but it would be followed by inferior kingdoms, the chest of silver, belly of bronze, and legs of iron. The mixed iron and clay represented a divided kingdom. Finally, the stone symbolized God's eternal kingdom that would crush all earthly powers and endure forever. Nebuchadnezzar, awestruck by Daniel's wisdom, fell prostrate before him. The mighty king of Babylon bowed to a young Jewish exile, declaring, "Truly your God is God of gods and Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries." Daniel, once a captive, now stood exalted. The king lavished him with gifts and made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and chief of all the wise men. In his moment of triumph, Daniel didn't forget his friends, securing positions of authority for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego as well. And so, through one man's faithfulness and God's sovereign plan, the wisdom of heaven infiltrated the very heart of the world's greatest empire, setting the stage for events that would shape the course of history. The plains of Dura stretched out under the scorching Babylonian sun. There, towering above the landscape, stood a colossal golden statue, 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, a monument to King Nebuchadnezzar's pride and power. The king summoned all his officials for the statue's dedication. A herald's voice boomed across the plain. When the music played, everyone must fall down and worship the golden image. The penalty for disobedience, a fiery furnace. As the instruments struck up their tune, a sea of people fell prostrated before the glittering idol. 3 men remained standing: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's faithful friends. Enraged Chaldeans rushed to inform the king. Nebuchadnezzar, his face contorted with fury, summoned the 3 Jews. "Is it true?" he demanded. "Do you dare defy me?" He offered them one last chance: bow or burn. Their response was legendary. With unwavering courage, they declared, "Our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image." Nebuchadnezzar's rage reached its boiling point. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, so hot that the flames killed the soldiers who threw the 3 men in. But as the king peered into the inferno, his anger turned to astonishment. "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" he asked his advisors. But there, walking freely in the midst of the flames, were 4 figures, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods, the king exclaimed. Approaching the furnace, Nebuchadnezzar called out, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out." The 3 emerged, completely unharmed, not a hair singed, not even the smell of smoke on their clothes. Faced with this miraculous deliverance, the mighty Nebuchadnezzar was humbled once again. He praised the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, decreeing that anyone who spoke against their God would be torn limb from limb. The 3 faithful Jews, who had stood tall when everyone else bowed, were promoted in the province of Babylon. Their courageous stand had not only preserved their own faith, but had also proclaimed the power of their God to the highest echelons of the empire. In the crucible of the fiery furnace, the faith of these men had been tested and proven pure as gold, far outshining the glittering idol that had prompted their trial. Their story would inspire generations to come, a testament to the power of unwavering faith in the face of overwhelming odds. Nebuchadnezzar, at the height of his power, addressed a letter to all peoples and nations of his vast empire. His words began not with boasts of conquest, but with the startling testimony of the Most High God's power. The king recounted another dream that had shaken him to his core. In his vision, he saw an enormous tree reaching to the heavens, visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, providing food and shelter for all creatures. But then, a holy messenger descended from heaven, crying out, "Cut down the tree, strip its branches, scatter its fruit. Only the stump and roots would remain, bound with iron and bronze." Then came the most chilling part. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the animals of the field. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass by for him. Troubled, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Daniel, now known as Belteshazzar, to interpret the dream. Daniel, upon hearing it, was so disturbed that he remained silent for a time, his face pale with concern. With heavy heart, Daniel revealed the interpretation. The great tree was Nebuchadnezzar himself. His kingdom would be stripped away, and he would be driven from human society to live like a wild animal for 7 years. This decree was so that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. Daniel, showing remarkable courage, urged the king to renounce his sins and show mercy to the oppressed. Perhaps, he suggested, the disaster might be averted. For a time, it seemed the king had heeded the warning. But 12 months later, as Nebuchadnezzar strutted upon the roof of his royal palace, pride swelled in his heart. "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence? By my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty," he boasted. The words were still on his lips when a voice thundered from heaven. In that instant, Nebuchadnezzar's sanity fled. The mighty king was driven from his palace, eating grass like cattle, his body drenched with dew. His hair grew long like eagle's feathers, his nails like bird's claws. 7 long years passed. Then Nebuchadnezzar lifted his eyes to heaven, and his sanity returned. In that moment of clarity, he praised and honored the Most High God, acknowledging that all the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing before him. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom was restored, and his splendor even increased. But now, the once proud king concluded his letter with words of praise for the King of Heaven. For everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. Thus, the mightiest king of his age became a living testament to the sovereign power of the God of Daniel. His story a warning to the proud and an encouragement to the faithful throughout the ages.